Uh-oh.
I know you said something, give her one more last parting shot.
Hello, Sky. Hi. I know it's morning where you are, but I know that you woke up to watch the fight because you've been ducking for a mighty long time. Ain't no more running, baby. All that talk, I'm about to put hands on you.
There you have it.
What's up, Sky? What's up, Sky? All that talking that you've been doing on Twitter, baby, it's time. I'm coming for you. I'm coming all the way to Australia, mate. Get my kangaroo ready because I'm going to ride out on it. All that talking I've been doing, it's time to put up a shut up because I'm a dog walker.
Yeah, all of that sounds good, but from what I saw in Tiara Brown's fight yesterday with Calista Salgado, who's nothing like Sky, Tiara Brown won a decision yesterday against veteran journeywoman and professional opponent Calista Salgado, who's lost a lot of fights to a lot of good fighters. Tiara won a decision against the 36-year-old Calista Salgado, who's been knocked out at least 3 times before, just not yesterday, not by Tiara, which is not encouraging ahead of a Sky Nicholson fight, because where Calista sat in the pocket with you, traded with you, she's nothing like Sky. She's not long and limber like Sky, agile like Sky, mobile, youthful, fast, because Sky is fast. I'm not a fan of her methodology, but Sky is good at what she does. And if you can't put away a Calista Salgado, a short, stumpy, stocky fighter that's actually trading with you in the pocket, then you're not putting away Sky Nicholson. She's a lot harder to catch, a lot harder to hit.
Crawford.
So you can trash talk, you can call her out in your post-fight interview and pretend that she's been avoiding you all this time. You can do that.
And the spectators can eat it up.
The audience. But yesterday's fight is confirmation, at least for me, for what I already thought. I already thought that Sky would beat Tiara before yesterday.
Yesterday confirmed it. For me, it did.
Tiara claims that she's gonna dog walk Sky Nicholson. From what I saw, you didn't dog walk Calista Salgado.
Americans really do have an affinity for trash talk.
It makes things interesting, and it helps sell a fight, but you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Sky Nicholson, seemingly reacting to Tiara's fight yesterday, said there's levels to this game, and she just ain't on mine. Sky's gonna right hook her to death, pivot her to death, keep her moving,
Pot shot her.
She's not gonna allow Tiara Brown to set her feet and sit on her punches and get off those big punches mid-range to inside, because Sky's not a mid-range to inside fighter. At her very best, she's an outside fighter.
By now, everybody knows that.
Sky Nicholson's best weapon, her movement. No, she's not big on power, and she's not a combination puncher, not the aggressive type, but her movement.
It's elite.
You need elite level movement of your own to keep up with and keep on her. At 36 years old, I don't think Tiara has that. Saw a younger, fresher fighter in Raven Chapman, a pressure fighter, come up short against Sky Nicholson. Tiara,
Talking shit.
it's just gonna make Sky Nicholson's victory that much sweeter, further boost her profile. In the absence of Amanda Serrano, the Ring Magazine, and Lineal featherweight champion, in her absence, Sky becomes the woman to beat. With a resume that's coming along nicely. Hard puncher in Diana Vargas, a pressure fighter in Raven Chapman, a former champion in Sarah Mahfoud, and a talkative American, Tiara Brown.
She's gonna make her eat those words because she won't be able to deliver her power. No, I don't think Sky's all that durable, which is why she moves so much.
It's often the case with pure boxers. The reason they don't like to sit in the pocket is they're just not built for that kind of fight. That kind of fighting.
It's not their bag, but it doesn't have to be.
So long as she can keep it long and loose and on the outside on the move, she can win. And I think she's going to, very soon, in Australia, on the undercard of George Kambosos' Matchroom debut against Tiara, Sky Nicholson is the pick. Sky Nicholson, unanimous decision. Men's featherweight news. Newly crowned IBF featherweight champion Angelo Leo is set to defend his title against Kameda on May 24th in Osaka. He's going to Japan for this one.
Not what I expected for his first title defense.
Angelo Leo put the pen to the paper today for the first defense of his IBF featherweight title. The Las Vegas-based New Mexican Leo will head to Osaka in Japan to take on Tomoki Kameda!
Stop yelling!
On May 24th, in a fight for the title, he won via a devastating knockout over Luis Alberto Lopez last August. Then champion, Leo, 25-1 with 12 KOs, was a significant underdog, but uncorked one of the punches of the year to separate Lopez from his belt in the 10th round in his Albuquerque homecoming. Leo delivered a huge left hook, and now will look to do the same against Japanese star Kameda, who is 42-4 with 23 knockouts, having turned pro in 2008. Now 33 years old, Kameda defeated Kevin Villanueva last March, and then avenged his loss to South African Lorado Domini. Winning a split decision in August, he'll have reigning champion Angelo Leo in front of him now. I'm surprised.
I remember reading after Angelo's win over Luis that as a result of the win, Top Rank would have options on him moving forward for at least the next 2 fights.
So I expected that his very next fight would be taking place under the Top Rank banner here in America, but I guess the Top Rank, there's not much money in staging a fight for Angelo Leo.
Spend money on that for what? He's not a big name out here.
Nothing against him, but in a situation where they actually have options on the fighter, and in his very next fight he ends up in a foreign country, it can't be because they felt hard-pressed to do a fight for him. So he's fighting Tomoki Kameda now, former champion Tomoki Kameda, who once held the WBO title at 118 pounds for a few years. He aspires to become a 2-division champion now, just like Angelo.
What the hell is an Angelio?
Tomoki saw action 2 times last year, once in March, then again in August.
Where Angelo saw action 3.
3 times. Once in January, again in April, then again in August, his big win over Luis Alberto Lopez. Part of how Angelo Leo was able to come back to the forefront of the sport and become a champion was by rebuilding himself on Pro Box.
I think he had 2 fights on Pro Box before he landed that title shot with Luis Lopez.
Now he's got to defend his belt, and if he can keep it, afterwards he can seek to unify it with Nick Ball,
WBA champion,
Brandon Figueroa,
WBC champion.
I would say Rafael Espinoza, the reigning WBO champion, but I think he's on the verge of moving up in weight and vacating the brown belt, at which point I think it'll go to Shushu Carrington.
He's about to fight the Ukraine's own Arnold Kagai.
Stern tests for Angelo Leo if he can stay champion in Osaka, if he can beat Tomoki Kameda, who aspires to become a 2-division champion himself. He's got a lot more fights and a lot more rounds in the bank than young Angelo Leo. He's never been knocked out. He's never been stopped. But then again, neither was Luis Lopez before Angelo got his hands on him.
It's intriguing.
We'll talk more about it as the fight date approaches.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing,
Cornflake Lamanna, who was supposed to be boxing Jermall Charlo on the undercard of Davis versus Roach, took to his social media and stated, "As many of you know, I was scheduled to fight Jermall Charlo on the Tank versus Roach undercard on March 1st in Brooklyn, and I wish today was going to be my announcement date. I've been locked in and training for what will be one of my biggest fights to date against the former unified champion. Unfortunately, I was just made aware he will not be ready, and the fight will no longer take place on that date. Whatever he is going through, I actually understand. Life and mental health is real. He is a great fighter, and I hope he gets back on track and we can share the ring in the near future. Hashtag dark places." You have to wonder, what has Jermall Charlo been doing with the time?
he last saw action over a year ago in November of 2023. 1 fight in the last 3 years. He sat out all of 2022, only boxed once in 2023, and sat out all of last year. this was supposed to be his comeback fight.
Every time I turn around, one of the Charlos is supposed to be making a comeback from champion to charity case.
Come on.
Remember a couple of weeks ago reading an article where Stefan Espinoza said that a big part of the PBC's bottom line in the new year is bringing back the Charlo brothers, Jermall and Jermall. Well, I guess we can rule out Jermall, at least momentarily.
Do you believe he's still an unbeaten fighter? 33-0.
And you'd never know it from how he's holding up these days. I don't know what the problem is specifically. I don't know if it's a psychological condition, because if it is, then he really shouldn't be getting punched in the head. Or is it a substance abuse problem, a drug problem, an alcohol problem?
You guys got problems.
One fight in the last 3 years? Just consider this guy retired. Whatever Jermall Charlo was gonna do in the sport of boxing, he must have done it already.
Some guys can't handle success.
It's not like he got beat by somebody. It's not like he got beat by a guy and struggled to come back. Jermall Charlo is an unbeaten fighter. He was a champion at 154, a champion at 160.
It's not like he got annihilated like Deontay Wilder or Errol Spence. Errol Spence Jr., who was supposed to be coming back.
That fight is off. And so is this one.
He's done.
They both are. Errol Spence Jr., Jermall Charlo. We're still hearing rumors and rumblings about Jermell's ring return, a proposed return to the junior middleweight division. I've my skepticism, my reservations about Jermell's return and whether or not he can actually get back down there after all this time.
I doubt it.
Goes back to what I always say about the PBC, what remains of them, and their aging stable. You've just got a lot of inactive guys there in their mid-30s to where even if you could ensnare a new broadcast partner, what are you actually bringing to the table, and what would the programming look like?
What's the value of the PBC these days? The PBC stable.
How the mighty have fallen. In truth, the PBC is the youngest of all the major outfits that are out there. Top Rank would be the oldest.
Yeah, they've been around the longest. Then I think it's between Matchroom and Queensberry, then Golden Boy.
The PBC was established after all of them, after all of those promotional outfits, and it took them far less time to burn out because they didn't know what they were doing.
And it seems to me you lived your life
They established 2014, 2015, and where are we now in 2025?
like a candle in the wind.
10 years, roughly. 9 or 10 years. That's how long they've been around. I don't think they're going to be around much longer, but we'll see. It'll take a miracle for somebody to step in and pull them out of this rut. But if they do, what are they really saving?
What is there left to save? What usable fighters remain would be better off going their separate ways, going to other promoters.
And finally, in men's super middleweight news, the deal for Canelo versus Crawford super fight edges closer to completion. This year, boxing fans are bracing themselves for a multitude of big fights, with Turkey LL Sheikh vowing to make boxing great again. And there may be none bigger than Canelo versus Crawford. Over the past week, a host of potential matchups have been rumored, from Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder to Teofimo Lopez versus Jaron Ennis. However, a clash between the two former undisputed champions, Canelo and Crawford, is one that appears to be nearing completion, according to ESPN boxing reporter Mike Kopinger. The two fighters met separately with LL Sheikh in London last week, indicating some sort of deal was being discussed. And later this year, a showdown between the two of the top pound-for-pound talents looks set to take place. From what I'm told, they're in the process of finalizing a deal for a fight in September on Mexican Day Independence Weekend, and it'll be in Vegas at the 168-pound weight limit, no rehydration clause, Kopinger said during an appearance on ESPN's State of Boxing show. This will help to satisfy the desire from some,
Because the fight would be happening here in America, in Vegas.
to bring big-time boxing back to America. Not to say that fights aren't happening in America, they are, but it seems like the biggest of the big fights are happening elsewhere in the world. Now, maybe that's because those fights involve non-American fighters, like Fury and Usyk, or better be Van Bivol,
Joshua and Dubois.
Maybe that's why it feels like America is no longer the center of attention for boxing anymore, but this will help to rekindle that flame if you do that fight here, as the audience most interested in a Canelo Alvarez or a Terence Crawford is an American audience. So it's all about what fight you're putting on. Crawford, 41-0 with 31 KOs, began his career as a lightweight at 135, winning the WBO title before moving on to become undisputed at super lightweight and welterweight. A hard-fought win against Israel Madrimov last August earned him a world title at a fourth weight class at super welterweight. Facing Canelo would require a further 14-pound weight jump for the 37-year-old Nebraskan. Canelo, 62-2 with 2 draws, 39 knockouts, similarly has climbed through the weight classes, having begun at super welter, where he picked up the WBC title. The Mexican would then become unified champion at middle, undisputed at super middle, and a champion at light heavy, defeating Sergey Kovalev to win the WBO title
before moving down and becoming undisputed, the very first undisputed super middleweight champion in the 4-belt era,
and the very first Mexican-born undisputed champion, making history on multiple fronts. Last year, Canelo, who currently holds 3 of the 4 belts at 168, appeared to distance himself from a Crawford fight, disputing what a win against the smaller man would do for his career and legacy. But the American has continually called for the bout and looks closer than ever to getting what he wants.
I told you this is a fight that captures the imagination. Something like a modern-day Sugar Ray Leonard versus Harvin Magler.
Something like that. And of course, the Canelo fans don't think Crawford stands a chance. And of course, the Crawford fans think he does. But the point is, it brings 2 separate factions of fans together for one big fight. One super fight. And with Turkey at the helm of the promotion, I can only imagine who's going to be on the undercard.
A complete show, not just a main event and some forgettable fights in the build-up, an actual full card.
I've often stressed that the Saudis' interest in the sport of boxing isn't necessarily to turn over a profit so much as promote tourism in their region of the world and advertise their Riyadh season. But this is one show that's commercially.
It's huge. I wouldn't be surprised if it does 1 million or well over 1 million pay-per-view buys.
I wouldn't be surprised. To do a super fight, you need 2 big names, 2 distinguished professionals, 2 guys that are dominant to make a super fight. And that's what this is. I'm only curious as to who Canelo Alvarez will fight in the interim, and who will Crawford fight in the interim, if he does fight. Who will Canelo fight in May?
Some people think it's going to be William Skull for his old IBF title to complete the set. That way he can bring it to the Crawford fight.
I've seen some people say that, and I could see that happening, but I'm even more curious as to who Terence Crawford will fight. Is he going to have a fight at 168 or somewhere in between 154 and 168? If so, who? And whoever that is, does it jeopardize the Canelo fight?
It's a big jump.
Is he going to have a fight in the interim to help him acclimate and get used to fighting at that weight? And if he does, who's it going to be against? Because that matters.
This year may be an even bigger year in the sport of boxing. With everything that Turkey has planned, you can't complain.
So when news broke that the Garcia versus Haney rematch may be outsourced to Saudi, there were some who had a negative reaction to that, but surely this should quell their appetite.
Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, Las Vegas, right here in America.
You happy?